This is not according to the schedule. For this reason, I was not prepared. So, first of all, hi, Mr. Eric and Mr. Youssef. I promise you one thing in this panel. Will be the shortest panel that you have seen today. This is not fair by the end of the day to have more spend time. So, to start with, as you know, and everybody knows, and we do have the experts here with us today to talk about mainly in particular what's happening in the financial inclusion and fintech space. We know the whole global was busy in the last 50 years maybe to do the building the fundamentals, and we have seen a massive change in the last 30 years where the internet was introduced strongly into the global and mainly in our region, where it comes with the connectivity and with the data. And we have seen a lot of what banks was doing in this space, but they have built a very core fundamentals in this context. But what happens in the last 10 years was massive change. So whatever happens in the 50 years or space or 30, but what has happened in the last 10 years was a step change in this space that we are working with. So we have seen a lot of things that happened in the last 10 decades, where, for example, if we want to talk about Jordan, before 10 years there was no bill payment platform in which you can pay your bills by a click of a button while you are sitting in the couch at your home. So you don't have to spend 2 hours to pay your electricity bills. At the same time, before 3 years, nothing was called instant payment, where you can transfer money to someone again in 1 second, where the money can be instantly available. Before I start with my honor panelist, I would like to share one small story where I was one time attending a conference in Spain, and my daughter was studying in Germany, and my bank account is in Jordan. So she sent a message on WhatsApp asking me she needs the money. And while I am attending that conference, at the same minute, I transferred the money from my account to her account, and she used her card in Germany. So this is the world that we are talking about. We are connected, literally connected, and we have strong use cases to talk about. So I will start with Mr. Eric, who's our expert, and he is well known, and he's working with one of the strongest fundamental institution in Jordan with a very rich of experience. Mr. Eric, I would like to learn about your thoughts. You know, as we have been said, during the past years, there was a lot of things happening in the financial inclusion space, whereas a lot of the fintech innovation was taking place from the bank side and from what we call it like the wallet space. Before we go to the future, we would like to learn about such expertise and learning that the banks and the financial institution in general have done a core use cases that we would like to hear from your insights about such expertise, such experiments that was done in our market and in the region. If you can share this with the audience, please.
Certainly, Amjad. Right, good afternoon or evening to everyone. Listen, what I observed in the past few years is that financial inclusion has happened mainly because of two drivers. It's number one, very simple digital onboarding of customers. You can do that simply, real time, and your app is activated. And the second part is the access to payment, whether it's peer-to-peer transfers, and of course, as we've seen in Jordan, Click has been a material enabler. I was reading recently that digital wallets have more than 2.3 active million users on a monthly basis in Jordan. And Click transfers has been booming month on month. So that has been the major drivers to the financial inclusion. But equally, that is also the pitfall of digital banking or digital wallets. If you can actually onboard so rapidly, you can onboard to 1, 2, 3, 4 apps. And eventually you end up having multiple users, having multiple accounts on different apps. So the future in financial inclusion and digital banking will be about being the relevant digital app that can really create that value add to you as a user. Number one, you need to make sure that the app has to be super, super simple to use. You have to have a continuous digital engagement to make sure that we understand the customer needs, we understand the customer behavior based on their payment data, but also their preference, and therefore we're able to provide recommendations to them. And eventually you have to move into the space of financing. You know, making payments alone is not enough. Ultimately, you are there as well to support the needs in financing in different stages of the families and households. And when it comes to digital wallet, that is where probably you have some limitations to access to finance. And this is where partnering with regulated entities, such as banks, but also others, will facilitate the access to financing for those digital wallets. We've seen the examples, for instance, in Saudi, STC Pay has actually 12 million registered users, if I'm not mistaken. And on their own, they've decided, let's go and become a bank, because they wanted also to acquire deposits capabilities and be able to finance the needs of their customers. But that comes also at a heavy cost and heavy infrastructure and skills capabilities. Boston Consulting Group published beginning of this year some statistics that out of 450 global digital banks, only 24 or 25 were operationally profitable.
Wow.
And it means it's about 5 to 6%. So what does that tell us? That going into a digital space in the financial service industry is great, but you need to be able to sustain the product roadmap, the service demand, in order to actually maintain that engagement with your customer. And that requires continuous investment, continuous funding. That also requires to build more security, anti-fraud detection systems, resilience, ensuring that we always have the best performance with our customers. So that's why I'm looking at the digital space around us, that financial inclusion has happened, yes, but there is a need now to enhance the value proposition of those digital wallets and challenger banks in order to really fulfill all the needs of their customers, from the teenager group up to 60 and over.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eric. I think you touched base in different verticals, which is excellent. This is good, just as an opportunity to mention here that just to take Jordan as one of the use cases, which is part of the important region, and Jordan has very good, strong use cases that we can use it as a baseline of our assessment. The GDP of Jordan last year, or is expected, it was around 51 billion US dollar. While one of our platforms in Jordan, which is electronic bill payment platform, which is known as e4Telecom in Jordan, processed last year only $17 billion as a worth of value in one particular platform. And the Click by itself also last year processed almost more than $10 billion as a worth of value. So you can imagine how those only vertical platforms are transforming the money movement plus the money payments plus other verticals. So we can imagine how the financial inclusion and innovation is participating in transforming not only the technology part, but also it touch base our life and behavior of the human being. Thank you, Mr. Eric. Mr. Youssef, today, one of the mainly the main challenges that is facing the startups and the small businesses, which is the partnership part, which is very much important, and maybe a lot of the speakers, they touch base about the partnerships between the startups and the big ones, which is like the banks. How do you see access to finance can be facilitating the innovation of those startups, taking into consideration the challenges? I know that the mindset of the financial institutions, the big ones, has been changed now, and they are thinking differently. They are not seeing those startups as a risky opportunity, but they start looking from it as an opportunity to grow to grow into the new dimension. So what is your views and insights, please, if you can share with us from your learned experience about such partnerships?
Okay, thank you. In terms, I'd like to start with financial inclusions and the bank. And the topic of financial inclusion is very important. And really, there is a big gap. If we look at the MENA region, the MSME financing gap is about 160, 180 billion. If we take the informal sector, it's about 210 to 240 billion. Now, the banks are really putting a lot of effort in addressing this gap through digitization, but they're still having difficulty in scaling up. And primarily because of product segmentation. The needs of the small businesses are different than the needs of the medium businesses. Also, the challenges of digitization for legacy banks, and also the cost of doing this change. When the banks really digitize, they also need to do the back end. And some banks are faring better than others, but it is a challenge. And really, also the thinking is, how can you increase lending? It's not really for the MSMEs to adapt for the loan application and the loan requirements. It's how the banks and the loan application can adapt to the needs of the SMEs. And this is where partnership is very important. Fintech companies really do well in digitization, in customization, in being agile and responding to market needs. They're very strong in that, while the banks are not. However, fintechs are not strong in mobilizing capital that is needed. And this is where the banks are strong. And this is where the synergies, the partnership comes together. And here, when we want to address the financial inclusion gap, is really basically access to credit. Now, such partnerships really address several important topics. One is really the enhanced risk assessment, where through fintechs, and the use of artificial intelligence, machine learning, you could analyze and really evaluate the creditworthiness of SMEs, and hence facilitate lending to them. To have a streamlined process. You go to a traditional bank, for a small loan, you have to sign like 20 agreements. There is also the data-driven insight, where fintechs can use data from the market that the banks can use and to develop relevant products for the MSMEs. And also the enhanced customer experience. Also, customers want things simplified, and fintechs really are able to provide the good customer experience. Now, in terms of examples, and we see that, I do not want to discourage, it's not, I'm just highlighting the challenges and where the partnership is, but there are a lot of successes. And if we look at the region, for example, the National Bank of Egypt really partnered with Fawri, and Eric talked about mobile wallets and payment systems and so on. And also the Commercial International Bank in Egypt partnered with Pay Mobile, where they really facilitated the payments that both of you discussed, but also increased the ability for MSMEs to collect payment, to widen their customer base, and to facilitate the cash transfers, payment infrastructure, and payments. One last example I'd like to use that is really at the crux of that is Orange Bank Africa, which is a digital bank. And it developed a loan, a tic-tac loan, that you can take up to $1,600 for a tenor of 90 days within 10 seconds. And this is where IFC came in to help the market research to identify the products, and also from the back provided a risk-sharing facility to encourage lending. So partnership is key in really improving and reducing the financial inclusion gap.
Thank you, Youssef. So my next point that I would like to touch base on, which is today everybody is talking about fintechs, everybody is talking about financial inclusion, financial innovation. But I would like to hear, before we close out this session, I would like to hear your reviews and your insights about where we are seeing the landscape of the financial innovation for the coming 3 years. We have done a lot during the past 10 years. And mainly the application that was developed by the service providers, financial service providers, mainly the banks. So where do you see in the coming 3 years where we are heading, taking into consideration all the topics that has been discussed today from technological perspective, AI, infrastructure, 5G, and so forth. So where we are seeing the space of fintechs transformation, mainly in part in the financial inclusion space?
So there are multiple angles. I mean, number one is you cannot just be a financial app. You have to go beyond that. You have to connect to public services, to other private sectors, so that you are the trusted app in the pocket of the customer that you can safely turn on and access multiple services through APIs. So whether it's insurance, trading, public sector, governmental services, or any other e-commerce activities. So that's number one. Number two, you cannot dissociate data and AI anymore. So whatever we're going to expect in the coming years is probably an exponential growth in the usage of AI and Gen AI in our digital apps, in the form of either protecting the customer, could be about smart risk management, better service and what you call micro segmentation and engagement with personalized services. But also it will go to voice capabilities. Today we know that English, French, Spanish could be easily harnessed as a speech to text, text to speech bot. Arabic and the different variants is just a matter of time. So probably in the next 2 years, the way you engage with mobile app will be voice-based. And the question is, will there be actually a mobile app? Maybe not. No, because the UI UX that we build in the app today is quite complex. If you start talking to an app and the app provides back to you the answer you want, maybe that UI UX does not exist anymore. It's something quite different. So there will be innovation in that space. I think the third really will be the ability to connect the fintech ecosystems to banks through API platforms, whether it's banking as a service, embedded finance, like what we've launched in Arab Bank with our platform called Omnify, but also open banking framework that will evolve to open finance and open data framework. And that will connect any party through APIs to provide the best service to customers. So I'm expecting quite a big change in the next 2 to 3 years.
Thank you, Eric. Very impressive. Any thoughts, Youssef, in this context?
Yeah, maybe quickly, I see we ran out of time, but to build on what Eric mentioned, to have the APIs, to really go through open banking, this is a point. Partnership remains very important, and the type of companies that Eric mentioned will be crucial. Digital banking and neobanks are well. We have several clients that are digital banks, and we see exponential growth in them. And maybe a last point, maybe I will add embedded finance. We're integrating financial services into non-financial platforms will be another area that we will see.
Thank you very much for the panelists. Highly appreciate. I think this is, these topics needs hours to talk about. But again, in order to respect the time, we have to apologize and we have to stop here. Thanks for Eric and Youssef for their insights. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well,